Good morning, everybody. I hope your Thursday morning is going great, and I hope that your week is going even better. I was contemplating what's happening right now in Russia and Ukraine, and as you know, I guess I'm half Russian, Ukrainian. I lived all my life since 1 year old in America. I speak fluent Russian, and I have a lot of friends from Russia, and I have a lot of friends from Ukraine. A couple that still live there, a lot that live here, right? There's like a huge Ukrainian, Russian-speaking community in Brooklyn. We just call it Russian-speaking community, and that means anybody that's coming from the former Soviet Union. And it's interesting to see what's happening in Ukraine. It seems that Ukraine has tons of inspiration. Ukraine keeps moving forward, and Ukraine seems to have this certain type of inertia that they're just moving forward by all means necessary. Now, this is my theory. I think that America was in Ukraine at least half a year before Russia actually attacked. I also believe through American intelligence, exactly a third-party AI data company, that Ukraine had all the surveillance and all the information that they needed. Because of that, America and NATO, America's allies, were able to arm Ukraine with javelins and stingers and modern tactical suits, right? Like helmet, the vests, night vision, things like that. And as per Dr. Alex Karp, he says that we are one of the only companies that predicted the actual invasion of Russia invading Ukraine. And he believes that he's the only company, Palantir is the only company, or the only ones, let's say, that thought that Ukraine can actually beat Russia. And he said this and reiterated this, and those are like pretty much his own words during the Warsaw Summit that happened a couple of days ago. Now, I do have the entire video if you want to watch it. Just click the link up above. It's a really cool interview. It's like 20 minutes long, and then he does a Q&A. This is my thesis with Palantir. A lot of people are concentrating right now what's going to happen with Palantir and the commercial. The commercial is going to grow by a crazy rate. And I do believe that commercial is going to be bigger than government contracts. I also believe that Palantir concentrates more on the government, and from the government is how we end up getting commercial. Because if what we're doing is good for the government, then we're of course good for a commercial entity that is doing a similar business within the similar trade that we're helping the government with. Whether that is stopping forest fires, whether that is healthcare, whether that is supply chains and logistics, or whether that is military. Because at the end of the day, everything that you do for military can be transcribed and used in everyday big business. It all depends on how and what you apply the technology to. Earlier today, there was a post on Twitter, which I'm going to show you. And the post basically says, hey, a Russian interviewer is asking somebody from the Luhansk region, why are we fighting meter for meter when the Ukrainians are fighting village for village? And he basically goes on, and I'll let you hear it in just a moment, where he says, we are fighting NATO. A lot of people don't understand what we are fighting NATO means. So people think that this is quite literal. No, in Russia, when they're saying, hey, we're not fighting Ukraine, we're fighting NATO, they're saying it for two reasons, but there's actually meaning behind it. They don't mean that they are actually fighting NATO troops. That's not what they mean. They mean that Ukraine is NATO-backed, American West-backed, and that they are getting great training, and they have amazing equipment, as well as, besides for hardware equipment, software equipment. And this is where Palantir comes in. Now, another thing about the NATO that they're talking about is they cannot say, hey, Ukraine is beating us. They have to say NATO because it's going to be a lot worse than if Ukraine is beating Russia, right? And if Ukraine didn't have all this counter surveillance, if Ukraine didn't have all this equipment, probably they would lose because at the end of the day, it's who has the biggest army. And Russia has a lot bigger of an army. Russia is just untrained. Now they're completely unmotivated. And I honestly have no idea how they're going to win this. I don't think that Russia can win Ukraine at this particular point in time in the conflict that's happening because Ukraine has so much freaking momentum. Even if they use a tactical nuclear weapon, I still do not think that they can beat Ukraine. I don't think Ukrainians are going to stop. I think Ukrainians are going to keep attacking as long as they are backed, as long as they have the hardware and the software. I'm going to let you listen to this quick interview, and it's translated. And then I want to show you what Arnie, my man Arnie, put up on Twitter. And this is going to explain to you the connection of Palantir in Ukraine. All right, guys. First, if you are not following my man Arnie, you must follow him. He is the most underrated technical numbers and charts YouTuber there is in YouTube. And I don't just mean in Palantir. I truly believe in general. He is amazing. You must follow him. And he has a free newsletter, so sign up to his Substack. It's free. You do get an option for a paid version, but I'll let you go on his Substack yourself and check it out. At Arnie_Trezzi. Arnie says, how Palantir is supporting Ukraine versus Russia. And he's talking about this interview from Francis Scar. Why do we advance meter by meter when they advance village by village? And this is by a reporter called Olga Skabayeva, isn't happy with the way the war is going. And then Andrei Mrichko of the Luhansk People's Militia claims it's because they are now fighting NATO rather than Ukraine. The narrative of fighting NATO and the West has always been there. I'm telling you, if you are from Russia or know anybody from Russia, you guys will understand what I'm trying to say. Now they're kind of pushing the narrative, and it's actually factual what they're saying in terms of technology and backing. So they're not actually fighting NATO troops, no, but they are fighting Ukrainian-backed troops with NATO technology, specifically American software. And I believe that American software is from Palantir. I can't 100% confirm it, but that is my belief when you're putting all the dots together. And this is the interview.
Просто объясните, никоим образом не претензия, просто для понимания. Почему у нас метр за метр, а у них поселок за поселком? Почему у них сейчас получается лучше? С чем это связано и когда изменится ситуация?
Давайте учитывать тот факт, что мы воюем не с украинскими войсками, мы воюем с войсками НАТО. У них огромнейший ресурс, на данный момент превосходящий наш ресурс. Самый основной ресурс – это разведданные. Они буквально в режиме онлайн со спутника смотрят за нашим перемещением, за нашими фортификационными сооружениями. Естественно, это дает очень большие, скажем так, привилегии им, и шансы на успех у них намного выше.
All right, so he's talking about that they have a lot of backing, but one of the main backings that they have is satellites. And he's saying they know where we're going, they know when to attack, when not to attack, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of claims to this. I even have a video that I put up before that China says the same thing, that the only reason Ukraine, and this is like 3 months ago, the only reason that Ukraine is surviving is because they have a third-party Western AI data analytics company. They literally said this, China, not me, China. And then if you go a little bit lower, my man Arnie says, many words to say they have Palantir. And if you click on this Palantir video, which is also going to take a minute, I'm going to show you, it literally outlines Palantir's meta constellation and talks about a very similar satellite that tracks your every move to what this Luhansk fighter is saying.
Constellations then collaboratively schedule coverage over each port. Meanwhile, Apollo for Edge AI assigns tailored AI micromodels to each satellite. Running on board the satellite, the models will automatically find submarines and stream those insights directly to users. With the mission planned, Apollo automatically reconfigures each of the satellites, pushing the right micromodels into orbit. And as a software payload on board, Palantir's Edge AI platform connects complex satellite subsystems to models, integrating new AI with the hardware. The best part, my favorite part, is that as it orbits, the Edge AI platform hot swaps the right micromodels in, rapidly reconfiguring the satellite. The models process imagery, they detect submarines, geolocate them, and then determine any movement since the last collection pass, all in under a second.
You can look at that entire video, but I just want to play you a small clip. Palantir has something called Meta Constellation. Palantir, besides for Palantir Gotham, which is like their military branch, they have something called Palantir Edge AI, which allows you to do things at nearly real time. I'm talking about the lag is like a second or two. And they don't need to use cloud. They have satellites in the air and they track certain movements, certain positions, and not just one movement or one position, many, like millions of data points. And it's not only if this movement moves, but it's if this movement moves, let's say, north, and something over here is moving south, but in the middle we're moving west, well, then that doesn't mean nothing. But if in the middle we're also moving north, well, that means that this is an aggressive movement. And throughout this entire war, everyone's like, hey, Ukraine knows when to attack, when not to attack, where to attack, and where not to attack. So they're pretty much very efficient when it comes to this war. So they're not wasting resources on an attack that has, let's say, 50-50 probability. They're wasting resources that has a 90-10 probability, right? Or 80-20, whatever. I don't know what the probability in their favor. They're not going to go to a place that they don't have a high probability of whooping that ass. And this is what's happening over and over and over again, especially if you're listening to the news. Even more so if you speak Russian and you hear the news firsthand. You can put the dots together, and you don't need Palantir to put the dots together to understand Palantir is, at least in a large part, responsible for what's happening right now. And then Alex Karp goes on the Warsaw Summit, and he essentially says, we were one of the few that believed this was going to happen, and one of the only ones that believed that Ukraine can actually win. He goes on to say that now you have a David versus Goliath situation, and it's not enough just to spend a lot of money on your army, which is what Russia is doing. Proportional to the United States, they use the same approximate amount of GDP on their hardware. However, they're not upgrading their software at all. So Alex Karp is like, hey, those times are done. Where you can't invest in technology, those times are done. It's not about who has the biggest army. It's not about that. It's about now who has the most efficient army with AI data analytics. And you see a lot of pictures where Alex Karp met with the Polish prime minister, I believe, where Alex Karp met with the Lithuanian prime minister, if I'm not mistaken, where he's meeting with a bunch of different countries in the European Union, in NATO. Now, there's going to be a new dossier that's coming out from Ether Squared. If you guys don't know who that guy is, he's basically one of, not the only guy, but one of the guys. He's my guy, though. Like, that's where I get a lot of information from, for me personally, where he literally puts in different links on the Palantir Foundry website, on the Palantir Gotham website. And those links don't work. So he can't log in because he doesn't have a password. But there wouldn't be like a landing page if there's not some type of association between Palantir and the company or government that they're working with, the entity that they're working with. He's going to come up with a dossier 4. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a shit ton of new European links. After this is over between Russia and Ukraine, I believe they will be lining up and begging for AI data analytics from Palantir. And although, yes, a lot of people are so excited about the commercial growth, as am I, military growth should not be, diminished. Military growth is for good times and bad times. And once the military spends money, they're not going to not spend money because they have like a routine. And they're going to always spend more money because they need to max out their budgets to get a larger budget next year. That's just the way government works. If Palantir can sign up some of these NATO countries, if Palantir can also sign them up, not just for military, but non-military use. For example, they just signed up a contract for healthcare, for supply chains, first of its kind, and possibly get the NHS contract, then I believe that they're going to get so many more contracts out of the European Union, out of NATO, especially what's happening today with the geopolitical uncertainty. And after Russia, there's, of course, going to be China. And those are like the two biggest threats right now, right? China and Russia. After that, there's going to be so much more military spending to make sure that there's not another Russia, there's not another China in the future, right? That's what I personally believe is going to happen. And everyone's going to want Palantir technology so that a smaller country can at least defend themselves from a larger country. Now, I'm not sure if Ukraine was to attack Russia, can they take Russia? To be honest, I don't think so. However, with Palantir, you're at least capable of defending your own borders. It's a lot easier to defend than to attack. It's a lot easier to dig defense than to go on the full-scale attack forward. But every small country is going to want what Palantir has. And if you don't have what Palantir has, well, then you could just be another statistic. Guys, thank you so much. Give me the likes, give me the shares, give me the subscribe. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in the next 12 months for Palantir. And I truly do believe that we're going to be signing up a shit ton of government contracts, both domestically and more importantly, abroad. And if you guys want a quick synapse of all the different contracts that Palantir signed up in September alone, please click this link right here. Have a great day.